Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. But influence means that you need to rely heavily on soft skills. So when students enter the workforce as leaders, we know that they need to have strong decision-making and problem-solving skills. It's going to be crucial to their own leadership success, but more so to their organization and the people they lead. So our challenge was, how do we teach those soft skills in an online, fully online, asynchronous modality? Students complained regularly about the group work. So we had to pivot. We had to find something else, and that's when I found FLIGBY. And I knew that this was a winning solution for students because it offered them the ability to play individually, but it also allowed them to feel like they're on a team. We're making decisions, and they can instantly see results to those decisions that they've made. I even hear the students use the names of the people that are in the simulation of FLIGBY. Yes. And they'll actually talk about them as if they are, somebody that they know personally and that they have tried to mentor personally. So that's powerful. And I hear time and time again, I learned so much about myself as a leader. I learned things that I never thought I would learn by playing.
Oh, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this fantastic event. It's a pleasure to see so many of you here today. What I believe is a timely and important conversation. My name is Professor Zoltan Buzady. I teach leadership and decision-making at Corvinus University, Budapest, and I serve as the head of the Leadership and Flow Global Research Network. My privilege is to host this session and to continue into the second round of our five-part conversation series. The overall theme is bridging theory and practice of leadership development. We're going to look at various aspects of how leadership development is implemented effectively in a contemporary, ever-changing educational landscape. How real-world applications, how experience, learning styles can actually be integrated to maximize the future impact of our students and learners. Today, it's my great pleasure to welcome the honored colleague, Dr. Professor Dina Samora. Dina is Program Director at the Colorado State University Global Campus. As Program Chair, Dina collaborates with CSU Global Academic staff and is in charge of providing the curricular expertise for the organizational leadership programs. She makes recommendations to the program structure, the quality, the integrity, the whole grading, and I will be having a conversation with her this time. Our conversation is going to last around 30 minutes, and thereafter we invite viewers also to post their questions on the site, which I'm going to get through our staff. So, good afternoon, Dina. Good to see you. Can you say a few words about yourself? Introduce yourself to me of things I would like to hear. For example, can you tell us about the global campus of CSU, and then also what your role is as a program director? Hello.
I would be happy to. Thank you, Professor Buzady. It's wonderful to be here. It's just an honor to be with you and your audience today. And I work for Colorado State University Global Campus. I've been with them for about 13 years now. And as you mentioned, I oversee the organizational leadership programs, both bachelor's and master's. And as you mentioned, my role is to ensure that our programs are meeting student needs for learning, and engagement with the content. That's very important to us. At CSU Global, we assess our programs twice a year for relevancy and student learning and currency. And so that's a little bit about me and CSU Global.
So how big is your institution, this university? People are watching this, viewing this from actually all over the world. And tell us a little bit about the university structure in your case in the United States. How is that? And what does this global denominate?
Absolutely. We are based out of Denver, Colorado, and we are global. Anyone globally can come and take our courses. They are 100% online. So we are a remote university. We have sister campuses as well that are research campuses, and they are on ground. But we are the global part of our system. And we work with students. Our goal is to educate and give premier education to anyone, any adult student across the globe, and of course, all through the United States.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you more and more technical questions this time about this online, 100% online activities, because that's really fascinating. You know, there is this debate on how an institution should be structured, especially during COVID. It was highly topical. Then there was this so-called reflux of maybe not so much, but we're going to get into this. But for the viewers, and actually for myself, you have a very fantastically trimmed LinkedIn profile, which I explored, and it's very integrated. And you wrote there, which caught me, that your teaching philosophy is to problem solve with the motivation of teaching fish. So tell me, what is this?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I do like to teach to fish. The term really directly relates to an experience that I had while writing my dissertation. After about 6 months into my design, I realized that my design would not work for my topic. Those of you that have ever done completed a dissertation, you know what I mean. So after 6 months of that, I realized that I needed to do something different. So after much research, I wrote a long email to my dissertation chair with all my evidence as to why the design wouldn't work. Well, my chair called me within 10 minutes and said, Dina, you did it. I was teaching you to fish. I couldn't give you a fish because you would not have understood the need to change your design without that deep critical research. So that deep critical thought is truly what our students need to learn how to fish. So when students enter the workforce as leaders, we know that they need to have strong decision-making and problem-solving skills. It's going to be crucial to their own leadership success, but more so to their organization and the people they lead. So I found that one of the best solutions for practicing that leadership is that vision of teaching how to fish. And again, what we'll talk about today is ultimately what we decided on, what was one of the best reasons that we integrated some of the simulations was to get students to fish on their own.
Yes, we had a pre-talk already on my evolution from Harvard-style case studies, which I wrote and competed with in publications, to this more digital realities and possibilities. But coming back to the fish a bit, I had a similar situation with my doctoral student once, and I told her, I think this is impossible to complete a PhD. And then she told me 2 years later on, Professor, I was wondering whether you were just motivating me, or did you mean it sincerely that it's important? And I say, look, here you are. You made the progress, so you can fish. I wasn't sure, but now I am sure. But the more important part is that you are sure about it for yourself.
Yes.
So this highly philosophical and beautiful pedagogical words. So how do you implement this in practice? How does this look, this philosophy? What are the elements or the approaches when you design this course? This, for example, we stay with this organizational leadership. So how do you get this into it, into the program, your high fishing expectations, or not fishing, but expectations to make people be able to fish themselves?
Oh, that's a great question. And really, it came from a challenge that we had in our program, and that was, how do we teach those soft skills to leaders? Because truly, that's what leadership, I think it was John Maxwell that coined, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so, but influence means that you need to rely heavily on soft skills, right? You need to build relationships and such. So our challenge was, how do we teach those soft skills in an online, fully online, asynchronous modality? How do we do that? And how do we train an individual to build those relationships, make those tough decisions, problem solve in an online course? So we really began that journey of teaching them how to fish, using those skills that they're developing, but they were developing them theoretically, and we needed them to be able to move from theory, because there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, theories are very relevant and purposeful, but we needed them to move from that into that experiential realm. So what we did is we searched for solutions, and of course we tried what many try in an asynchronous world, and group work. Students complained regularly about the group work. So we had to pivot. We had to find something else. And of course, we've been in the online arena for longer than, of course, way before COVID. We started this in 2007. So I stumbled across gamification as I began to do research. But most of those were very clunky and at best lacked that real world feel, and that's when I found FLIGBY. And I knew that this was a winning solution for students because it offered them the ability to play individually, which was important. We needed to get away from the group work, but it also allowed them to feel like they're on a team. We're making decisions, and they can instantly see results to those decisions that they've made, and they can learn, reflect, and try again. And there's that way of learning how to fish, right? So they're actually fishing, and they can make those mistakes and realize the triumphs without hurting anyone.
Yeah. So it was more or less an iterative way. You had other attempts before. What are your views? Because frankly speaking, I have some experience with simulations, which are more numeric type of simulations, like marketing, or I used to teach business strategy, and it's around calculating a niche co-option, but behind it is always a complicated Excel sheet.
Yes.
Let's call it like this, where there is some calculation. And then students usually sit together for half an hour. They have to take a decision on first 4 parameters, then 6, and then 8. It gets more and more complex. Yes. But then they get a feedback, which is a number like, this has gone up, this has gone down. And then they have 5 rounds of that. And this was a whole afternoon from 2 until 6, maybe. Yes. And so they see a number, they talk, and they like this. But then it's not single player. It's only 5 decisions. And it's really one-dimensional because it's a very calculating type of effects. But how was it for you? What games did you play before or discover around FLIGBY or other than FLIGBY?
Absolutely, yeah, we did. We tried several things. There are some tools. We call them tools within our organization. We call any kind of simulation or gamification, we call tools. We tried several. Game Learn's one of them. We've tried Harvard Business Publishing's simulations. We've tried, there's some that you can create yourself through some use of some tools. But what we found was many of them are just kind of clunky. And I use that term because students find them hard to use. There's some of them are just a frozen face, with words that the students need to read, and then, if they answer it correct, they get another face, and it was very unrealistic. And that's why, we kept looking out. Now, Game Learn was a little more avatarish, I'll call it. And the students do like that. They like to be able to become the character. And so Game Learn was a good choice. We integrated some of that. But FLIGBY was the one we had our eyes on, because FLIGBY actually uses that realistic feel to it, where you actually become engrossed in the situation and um, the process of making those decisions and learning more about the people. And I even hear the students use the names of the people that are in the simulation of FLIGBY.
Yes.
And they'll actually talk about them as if they are, somebody that they know personally and that they have tried to mentor personally. So that's powerful. You can't put a price on that for
Yeah.
student learning.
Yes,
Yeah.
they get very personally engaged. One of the first questions I ask them entering the room is, which character did you like most and whom did you like least? And this is actually very interesting, because the more senior the people are whom I'm teaching, the more they're actually business wise and business oriented, and they pick the person who has this sales, who has this bite, and they say, I wish I would have such a colleague. Whilst younger ones, they have very different experiences and they associate themselves much better and much more with softer characters or helping characters, more like somebody who nurtures them, right?
Yes.
So when this decision is taken that, okay, you like this game, somehow you come across, how is that then integrated in a curriculum? As a program director, is that a single course, or is that running through a semester in various courses? How is this technically done? Because I teach with it myself. Usually faculty colleagues go to their university dean and they say, I need a budget. Instead of buying this as a book or a case study set, this is what I'm going to use. But I think you have a very special opportunity as a program director to connect it transversally across different modules. This is what I gather that you do. Please tell me.
Yes, that's a great question. And we do. We actually what we call integrate it into the course. So it becomes part of the course from the beginning to the end. So students don't feel that it doesn't want, you don't want it to feel like it's not a fit. And I think when we think about integrating it into a course, we have 8-week courses. They are 8 weeks, moves pretty quickly. And of course it's 100% online. So the teaching modality is a little bit different as well as the facilitation of the course. So we hire somebody within our ranks normally. Sheila Landfair-Mueller is one that we have used quite often
Hello,
to
Sheila,
work
if you're
with
going
us.
to watch this. Hello,
Yeah,
Sheila.
Sheila's there. Hi, Sheila. And she is just phenomenal with knowing how to take the learning outcomes of that course and blend that simulation seamlessly. So students feel like the game was actually made for the course. So it doesn't feel disjointed. It flows very well. Flow, of course. It flows very well through the course. And so what we do is we make sure, first of all, that our tech team is okay with it. They have to be willing to support the simulation. So, and any tech issues that arise, because they do on occasion. So both students and faculty may have tech questions. So at CU Global, we've been, our tech team has been amazing that way, and they'll let us know if there's a challenge with the game, and what we hear from FLIGBY is all kudos. So we're glad about that. And it's not always the case. Technically, you have to excuse me because I'm not the tech person, but I do know, we work very closely with the leaders at FLIGBY. And we met probably every week for a while, just talking about how it would seamlessly work within Canvas. And what we wanted was what we call a one-click solution. Yes. That's what we want for our students. We try to make the student experience is very important to us. So we want to make it seamless. So the students can actually come in and click one time and go into FLIGBY. It just takes them there. We got it to it where it works beautifully.
Yeah.
Students don't realize that it's anything other than part of the course. And that's what we
Right.
wanted.
So how I imagine is that they roll on one of the Canva courses, let's say module 2, and then it says play FLIGBY scene 1 until 5. And then there's a URL and they click on it and it appears on their screen. They play and then they realize, oh, it's scene number 6. I should have only played until 5. Oops. And then a week later on, they continue. This is how it is.
That is exactly it. Yes. And we do ask them to not play ahead, but many of them do. They get in the game and they don't want to stop.
They get it actually into the zone. They get into the flow.
Yes.
And my experience is I let them play in one go, but I give them ample time. Usually I say until next week or in 2 weeks' time, you have to complete it. And then they say, I see it actually from the data, from the login data, that some of them log in at 6 o'clock and then they finished at 1 o'clock in the morning. Very unhealthy. I tell them that you have to disrupt it. And then they say, what happened? And they say, I couldn't stop it, right? They got very engaged. I was curious on what happens. We know this from sequels, like a Netflix sequel, that you're really one more run, then suddenly you've been there 5 hours already. You just planned 2 or an hour and a half.
Exactly. Yes. We call that binging here in the States. Yes. So they binge the game. Yes.
What is really important is the introductory session. You see that on the left side of the screen. Yes. And what I said to them, learning outcomes. So they start a learning blog. I ask them questions like, what kind of leader you think you are? What are your strengths? What kind of personalities you can work with and not so much? It's actually a set of open questions. And then they engage in this FLIGBY virtual reality. And there's 2 possibilities. Either they play it all through the game, which mostly in my cases, it happens over 2 weeks. Or if it is a weekly or a bite-sized program, as it is for you, then they come back and then you can ask them questions like, okay, this was your first working day in this story. Which of the characters in concrete would be the person whom you liked most and whom you did not like? And then the teacher can actually refer back to, right, these are the characters, and what did you write about these characters on your own learning blog or your reflection blogs? So it can be staggered or it can go in one go. But what then is very important is this debriefing session towards the end. And that's really a personal engaging issue. And it's very pedagogically interesting what the focus is on. Is it on the flow experience of being a leader in the virtual story, which then should be the parallel of being able to find meaning in your work at your own leadership situations? Or are you going to speak of OB topics like power games, communication, conflict, prejudice, organizational culture, or the integration of OB to business strategies, because there are also these business-related dimensions you have to take during the story. So what are your thoughts on this flipped classroom approach? How did you stagger it, or what was your approach? Because I gather that you had this 8-week process and you had to break it down to smaller units to have some control on the progress, right?
We did. And we actually, and again, I say integrate, but we integrated the game into our organizational behavior course. So it's called Leading Organizational Behavior. And so, of course, we needed to teach the students because it's at the bachelor level, this one I'm speaking of specifically. So we needed to teach them the concepts of organizational behavior with the background of FLIGBY. So FLIGBY's woven through. So we're actually teaching those concepts of organizational behavior, the group dynamics and all the things that go, the culture and many of those that you've mentioned. And we just, every module, they're going through and they're playing the game, and the game that the piece that they're playing will connect directly to what we're teaching them that week in the module. So that's how we integrate it all the way through the course. And of course, the theory of flow is all the way through the course as well. So that's what we use for the textbook, actually. And it works very well. And we also have the students incorporate journaling. So
Yes.
every week they journal what they've learned. They journal their thoughts, their changes in thoughts, and their learnings each week. And at the end of the course, they turn in their final big journal for credit.
Yes, I call that learning block. The journaling is fabulous because nowadays with the AI, they can't, prompt anything on it. They have to write whatever they felt is relevant and interesting. And then they look back on it 4 weeks later on, in my case, sometimes 2 months later on, and they say, I was fascinated by what I wrote about myself and whom I liked, and now I played it. Do you also have a process that they replay for the second time or third time?
Yes, they can play it as many times as they like. And then of course those that, like you say, start at 6 and end at 1, they come back through, but they really do. I'm glad that they can take it more than once. That's
Yes.
important to me in any gamification that we use, because you get those students that are gamers and they like to play all the way through. Some are not, and some just stick with the plan, and that's fine as well. But I think it's very, very important to give them that option to take, to go back and play it over and over as many times as they want.
The way I structure it is they have to play at least once during the specified period, which is up to their own pace, as
Yes.
I told, about 2 weeks. But I don't prohibit them to replay. And I notice in the system that some of them did it 3-4 times.
Yes.
And then they come back. And then I tell them that the next round you have to play in trios, groups of 3, because then there is no collusion. There must be actually a coalition, and they must find. Then I ask them to log in and play under one person's account, and
Yes.
then take this together. And this is actually big stories, right? They reflect more and more away from the actual story, and they
Yes.
reflect about what's going on in their organization, so what they
Yes.
would be doing. So this is great for team debating and team activities.
Exactly.
The
We
other
do
thing,
that in the discussions as well. So we have what we call, online forums, and their discussions. So every week the students go into discussions, and exactly what you're talking about, that's what we have them do, is kind of that group work is done in the discussions.
very interesting. Dina,
Right.
I want to
Yeah.
show you also the interface I have in FLIGBY when players have finished, and I see a group level reporting. So this is called the leadership skills profile of a particular group. And in
Ah,
this case, it is my latest group. I taught them last weekend. It's the Corvinus University's executive MBA cohort of this year. You can see that there are 28 players, and all of them have finished the first game round. Some
yeah.
of them have played the game 3-4 times, but for me as a teacher, I'm sure that I will go into the room where there is nobody whom I have to ask to complete the game before joining the conversation. And then there are benchmarks with other colors. Another red color is the previous year cohort. Then I have 1,200 MBAs whom I taught over the many years. That's the green one. And then there is this gray number, which are all the 22,000 players worldwide who played FLIGBY. And then I see that there is this media library items, which tell me how much they have done in the reading materials, the videos. So do you integrate also questions related to the knowledge in FLIGBY around psychology and business and the video materials? Which
We do. Yeah, we actually use the faculty personally use the analytics that we receive, and then of course as a program director, I'm very excited to use that in my assessment. Of course, we have our course assessment, which our faculty provide, to the students, and we're really looking for that critical thought. That's for us. That's very, very important. We want them to reflect heavily on their decision making, their problem solving in the game, and through the course, learning those OB concepts. That's what we want. So, of course, there's that assessment, which gives them their score, their grade. And then my assessment as for the course or the program, I look at we have student surveys that we take at the end of every course. So at the end of every 8 weeks, we have survey data that we used. We also integrated into our final discussion forum. We have the students talk about the game itself and what they learned from it, what they liked, what they didn't like. And that to me is a gold mine, because I'm able to gather up that information and assess that as well. And to see, because they'll be a little bit more, it's a little less structured than our surveys. Our surveys, of course, we're asking them specific questions and they're answering those questions. And much of it has to do with the course, the faculty member, different questions. But in the discussion forum in the final week, that's when they, what we say, let their hair down. And they really do, tell us exactly how they feel. So, yeah. So they really do tell us what they don't like or what they do like. Now, we don't hear too much about what they don't like by the end. Now, in the beginning of the course, I've had students actually call me and say, I don't want to play the game. I'm not a gamer. I don't want to do this. It's childish. What are we doing here? We're in higher education. I'm an adult. I hear all that. And I just asked them, I said, just give it a chance. Yes. And at the end of the course, please call me back and let me know. And I hear time and time again, I learned so much about myself as a leader. I learned things that I never thought I would learn by playing. Yes. So I never hear at the end in feedback or anywhere that I didn't like the game. It was horrible. Now, some say, nah, I'm not a gamer. Most everybody says, when do we play again?
Okay. If somebody is about to approach you after this show and ask, oh, I've seen it and I want to maybe consider adopting it, what would your advice to any university or school, whether this is applicable, or maybe a trainer who wants to integrate it? What are your insights and key takeaways?
I would say first take a very serious look at what you want the students to learn, because it's going to be different for every course. It's going to be different for every set of students. It's going to be different for every modality, whether it's asynchronous or synchronous. But if you find that, it's a good fit, and possibly it's a soft skills driven type of course, HR, management, leadership, that type of thing, then play the game. I encourage you, play the game first. Yes. Think about how the game might fit into your course, and then talk with your tech team at the university. That's going to be very important. And then discuss the pros and cons of the technical side. If the tech team is not willing or able to support the simulations, you're rowing upstream. It won't work for you. But if they are, then next find a person like my Sheila that's passionate about the game. You want somebody that's passionate about it, that knows course development. And then strategically, of course, have them build that course out. Once you have it, then I would say strategically staff that course. And what I mean by that is choose those faculty that are not only that buy into the simulation, because there's faculty that won't buy into simulations, so they're out there. But find those that are not only buying into it, but they're excited about this type of learning. Because this last piece, the faculty that will get excited about the game will make it engaging for the student, and the students will learn at a higher level than they would if the faculty are just going along with the flow and not really,
Dina, now let's move on to the quiz part. So what we have is a scene from FLIGBY.
Okay.
Which is now part actually of the debriefing elements as well. Larry, he's very enthusiastic and full of new ideas. He comes along with an idea of how to change the harvesting technology, and you have to decide whether you support him or not. Let's have a look together, and then I'm going to ask your opinion.
Okay.
Larry has wanted to talk to you for a long time about his night harvest idea, but he felt he wasn't getting any attention. Winemaking in California is tough, especially during the hot harvest season when preserving grape quality is critical. Night harvesting helps keep grapes cool, maintaining acidity and flavor while improving working conditions. Larry's idea to implement a night harvest is excellent and worth exploring. However, he will need your managerial support to present and move this proposal forward. How you respond to Larry's suggestion is crucial for its success and for fostering team initiative. Larry has wanted to discuss his night harvest idea for some time, but ongoing leadership conflicts, especially between Alex and Rebecca, have distracted attention from him. Now is your chance to support Larry, as his proposal could fundamentally change winery operations. However, the timing raises a key question. Is this the right moment for such a big change? And is it right to give the green light to explore this idea without consulting Chris? Your response will show how you balance innovation with managing internal tensions, which is vital for maintaining trust and guiding the winery forward. You have 3 options for how to react to Larry's night harvest proposal. Option A, you are rather skeptical. Option B, you definitely like the idea and give the green light for working out the details. Option C, you don't have sufficient information and believe Chris needs to be involved.
So, Dina, there is
Yes.
some guy who wants to change this way of doing the whole business, and yeah, he runs across the corridor of your office and he says, "You wanted to speak about this for a long time," and he
Mhm.
asks, "Dina, please, are you going to give me okay?" What would you say?
I love that. I actually love the enthusiasm. And something we do here at CSU Global is and I've been dubbed the pilot queen because I really love to run pilots. And I know that wasn't one of the options, but it leans a little bit more toward we need more information and we want you involved, Chris. Okay. So that's probably the decision I would make. And I'd want to pilot it. I would say, okay, let's pilot just a small section of the vine, the winery, and let's just see how it works and see, if we're saving money, if it truly does make a difference in the taste of the wine. It's probably the way that I would go with it because I wouldn't want to discourage his enthusiasm. And obviously there's some research behind
Yes.
there's some, positive research behind that idea. So
Yes.
that's what I would do.
Yeah, this is great. Actually, in this media library, it's hidden away that this is professionally true. Harvesting at the night is much better for taste and for many aspects. So if one would play the game thoroughly, like a consultant, you can discover this fact. But I think if you look at the KPIs, each decision is considered to have impact not only on your leadership style, which we just discussed now, but also it can have an impact on some of the 4 KPIs which FLIGBY is constantly tracking. And the first KPI is, which could be considered, is how is that going to improve the corporate atmosphere? Mm-hmm. And I think such a decision would improve, Dina, the corporate atmosphere. Mm-hmm. This innovation, this change is some stimulus for most of the people who are there who say, oh, we are doing something completely new.
That's
okay.
Very well said. Yes.
We're now coming to the questions. Okay. So let me see here. What do I see? First question is from Daniel. Can leadership be fully learned online? Can an online program in general provide enough practical experience to develop complex soft skills?
I love that question because and that goes back to what I was talking about at the very beginning. That was a challenge for us. How do we teach these soft skills? So we've piloted a couple we piloted a couple of programs, executive leadership, very hands-on. We had the leaders out in the community doing community service. It was part of the program. They could find any nonprofit organization they wanted to partner with, but they had to do so many hours of community service as a leader, and it had to be a leadership role. So that was part of what we did. We practiced, we applied that, but we've also just released a new program, a master's program, where the students build their organization from the very beginning to the very end. It's very experiential, very hands-on. Can leadership be learned online? I would dare say yes. It was a challenge for us, but we're seeing the fruits of it. We're seeing some of these people take the organizations that they built and actually resurrect them and bring them to life. And then we're seeing students walk away with that information and being able to get promotions, being able to get hired, because they have built an organization from start to finish. So I would say, yes, it can be learned online, but it really does require the person to step out and out of the course room. And FLIGBY is a very good example of how a person can enter into a situation and learn those leadership skills. It's all about learning about yourself, really, as a leader.
So Sarah is asking you that you describe leadership as an influence. If that is the case, can influence be taught?
Absolutely, it can be taught. Yes, and in fact, that quote that I used was from John Maxwell. I call him a leadership guru. He's been around for many, many, many years. I enjoy his books. I enjoy learning from him, and I think you can teach influence. And again, to your point, that hurting people out in the real world, it's so much nicer to do it in a simulation where you can practice and you can reflect on, what did I do wrong here? How did what could I have done better? And as far as influence goes, building those relationships, even in the courses, in an online course, it can happen. I see those connections that students make in the forums. And we actually have what we call student-led discussions in our new program. So the students lead. So they become the leaders in a very safe environment with other colleagues, and they get to lead the discussions. And so again, they're being influential that way.
My 2 cents to this is that in FLIGBY there is this long process of interviewing your colleagues who already happen to work at the company when you arrive. And you actually influence their motivation by asking the appropriate questions. And some category of questions are all related to indicating that you understand what is the flow. You ask them about skills, the challenges, the feedback they receive. And some questions are actually demotivating to some persons, asking about the corporate atmosphere because they have no antenna for that. They're production people. It's very uninfluencing, putting them off. Whilst other characters in the story, who are also representing more harmonizing people, they are really saying, oh yeah, finally we start to speak really important issues. Same for the money. For most people, we say that, you want to avert the debate about how much money you earn. You want to create a flow promoting environment. But for Rebecca, for example, the salesperson, it's very important that you influence her by saying, this is how much you sell, this is how much you get. So I think this is answer, you can learn it, it can be taught. And that's the whole point of simulation, that you learn that, how to influence. Next one, Katie asks to Dina again. For Dina, how do you combine individual and group learning online?
That's a great question. And I kind of alluded to that. Online learning is not necessarily conducive to group work in the way that we think. Many of us have tried it over the years. Many of us have been in online education. I've been in there since 2006. So it's been a long time, and we've tried. It's difficult because most students don't like it. And one of the reasons they don't like it is because usually one person ends up doing all the work.
Yes.
And they're upset because, you know, they're doing all the work, and where's all my colleagues, and they're MIA when, you know, I need help. That it just doesn't seem to work. We've tried many different ways, you know, peer grading, all kinds of different things. So for us, we don't use group work. Now we do what we would call our group work would be our discussion forums. And that's where we all come together once a week, and we talk amongst ourselves all week long in those forums. So that would be what I guess we would call the combination of individual and group learning online would be in the discussions.
Very interesting. Let me share my 2 cents again. What I do is I use this trios for replaying FLIGBY, and they have to make contracts between each other, them, on what is going to be their learning targets, and they're mentoring each other throughout the game. So, for example, one picks that they want to improve more on awareness on profitability. The next one says, I want to develop my assertiveness. So once they go through the story, the other two let the other person discover moments where they could have been different, but then they intervene before they take the decisions jointly, like, look, Linda, here, this, you could have been more assertive, you were too aggressive, or here you were too lenient. And then they have to write a peer memo, a peer conversation memo. And they love this, to receive and to write to each other how they have perceived each other. They learn that for the organization, but this creates a mini group, a triad learning document, and they have A writes to B, B to C, and C to A, and then they have to upload it as well and send it to the other person. Last question, and then we're getting to an end, is are you hardcore gamers? Oh my God. What video games are you currently playing?
I love that question because I could not be further from a gamer. In fact, if you, my grandkids over the years laughed at me because anytime I tried to play, I would crash into walls or whatever. Yes. I always wanted to try to play with them just because I wanted to be with them. But I am not a hardcore gamer. But I did find that the gamification within learning from early years of, you know, I'm talking primary grades all the way up into higher education, I found that it's a real, true way to learn that students like. If they like it, they'll learn. So I embraced it because of that, because of the student enjoyment, and not necessarily mine.
Right. Well, in that respect, I think we're similar. I'm not a gamer either. However, I actually like the game most, which is the in-class group debates.
Yes,
I perceive it like a great game. All these participants, they bring in and create something in the dialogue. This task, I look at the time, how much time we have left. But one game I do recommend to viewers, and you also, Dina, is the Late Shift simulation game, also by FLIGBY. It's really a hardcore game. It's an interactive, entertaining movie.
Okay.
And it is being developed also for psychometric profiling on team roles. And it also creates a report. But the point is that in the future, there will be more and more interactive movies, and increasingly younger people, they want to get in from the game something from themselves. You know, maybe ridicule it a bit. In the old days, people wanted to see horoscopes to find out about how they are about that. Now they play a game to divert themselves and entertain themselves. But this reporting of their game decision is actually an increasing new trend. And I called it, when we spoke with FLIGBY, instead of gamification of theory into games, it's actually scientification of games into science, scientification. I think you will see more of those emerging.
I will look into that. That's interesting.
The quality must be good, not only the technology, but is there a foundation, which was at the beginning of our conversation. You told us.
Yes.
It was in the private call. Maybe it was already here. I can't differentiate now anymore. But you said that it's very important that a learning tool should have a scientific basis on what it's from. And this is the trend going.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Dina, do you have any questions to me, or you want to say something, or we're coming to an end now, right?
I don't have any other questions. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a joy.
Well, so Dina, I'm very, very honored to have been here with you, and all the insights you have shared around the implications and implementations and the usage of this new technology for the ultimate purpose of teaching young generations of people whom we get into our hands how they can fish, right? It's a great vocation, a great profession which we got.
It is.
We have discussed all the various aspects. The next show will be on May 13, so we have a few weeks break now. It's going to be on AI, preparing leaders for the AI era. It's going to be with Barbara Mitchell. She's Master Professor of Leadership and Strategy at Northwestern University, and she's founder of a Partners for Results Worldwide.com company. So we're going to look at the AI aspects and leadership and human responsibility and technology and these aspects. So thank you very much. May the flow be with you. Goodbye.